The end is just in sight, ladies and gentlemen. We have 4 more episodes left to talk about in this show. And I want to try and get it done as soon as possible because the release of the movie is not that far away. So let us dive into this, shall we? Of course, I'm Daniel Strunk. This is QuickTime Reactions, and you have found me on my way to The Mandalorian and Grogu, in which I'm going to be reviewing all 3 seasons of The Mandalorian, as well as the Book of Boba Fett. And today we are here to talk about Season 3, Episode 5 of The Mandalorian, aka Chapter 21, The Pirate. This episode was directed by Peter Ramsey, and since it is a pirate-themed episode, I feel like I have to say his name this way, Peter Ramsey. And the episode is written by jonfavreau. Peter Ramsey, by the way, actually has a very extensive backlog to his name. He would continue in the Star Wars path. He would direct an episode of the Ahsoka series. He has directed films like Rise of the Guardians, which I believe is an underrated DreamWorks movie. But probably his biggest claim to fame is that he was one of the directors on Into the Spider-Verse. So yeah, that guy is directing this episode. Navarro is being overrun by a group of pirates led by Captain Gorian Shard. And so the High Magistrate Greef Karga has to try and find any and all possibility of trying to get this scum out of his planet. Will he be able to find a solution? I think you know the answer to that question. So, I really liked how this episode was. And even there were some things in this episode that I completely forgot that happened in this episode. So, let's just dive into this. We start off with Greef Karga meeting with some engineers to talk about the layout of the town and, how, these things need to be placed here and here and here to make, travel and, transportation of goods even better. When Gorian Shard's ship enters into the atmosphere, and he has a communication with Greef saying, hey, you had one of your guys go after my guys and shoot them out of the sky, killing them. So, basically, now, we're going to take control of your town. We're just going to take siege, and basically, I will await for your surrender and your apology, and then we might let you live. And so, Greef is doing all the best that he can to basically lock the city down and protect the citizens as best he can. He sends out a transmission to actually Mr. Carson Teva to try and get the New Republic's help. Because, well, any help is going to be good help in this situation. But Teva is a little bit mixed about it, because remember, Navarro is an independent planet. It is not among the New Republic registry. But a little conversation with some guy named Zeb, convinces him to, maybe try and go help him out a little bit. By the way, Zeb is being shown for the first time ever in live action. And Zeb is going to be a big focal character for the movie, because we have seen shots of him in the trailer. Of course, Steve Blum, the man who voiced Zeb in Rebels, once again comes back to voice him in this show, as well as in the movie, of course. So, Tiva makes his way to Coruscant and actually is heading into the exact same building that Pershing was working at and got his questionnaire from episode 3 of this season. And of course, working there as well is Miss Elia Kane, who last we saw cranked up the intensity on that mind flare to basically wipe Pershing's mind clean. And so Carson Teva ends up going up to Colonel Tuttle, who, by the way, is played by the wonderful Tim Meadows. You would probably know him more recently in his nerd fare from being in Peacemaker Season 2 as Flurry. But Teva is trying to convince Tuttle to try and at least get a squadron out there to Navarro to try and handle this pirate siege on their planet. But Elia Kane comes in and says, hey, that sounds like a good idea, but they're not a part of the registry. And if they want our help, they should, be a part of the registry. And then maybe we can supply them some help. Passing off the whole, reformed imperial look, although she's not that way at all. So Tuttle denies Teva the chance to go and help out, but Teva has another option, and he follows a signal to where the Mandalorian covert is actually hiding. And when he pulls up, the Mandalorians immediately have guns on him, and Paz even says, since you found us, we have to basically move, or we can just kill you right now. But Mando stops that from happening because, Teva has, saved him a few times. And so Teva relays the situation to Mando and basically says, he is your friend and you should probably go and see, what is going on with this. And Mando decides that, yeah, he's going to go and help out his old friend. So it's Mando, it's Bo, and it's a whole lot of other Mandalorians going to try and help out. And actually, even before that, they have a meeting where Mando pleads his case, saying that, when we last were on Navarro, Grief Cargo was actually shooting at you. But rest assured, I can tell you that he has had a change of heart. And he means well with his intentions. But then Paz steps up and says, like Din said, last time we were on Navarro, he was the guy that was shooting at us. Why on earth should we go back there and spill more of our blood for what is ostensibly, a little planet? And, why should we even care? And it seems as though that he's not going to be on the side of Din, but he is. And he basically says, look, I know I've had my differences with him, but he saved my son. And Bo kept hope that he was alive, even though we all thought differently. So Paz rallies the troops, and they're off to Navarro to try and stop this pirate siege from going on any further. Mando is able to get the attention of Gorian Shard, who, by the way, it is worth mentioning that Gorian Shard is at least portrayed physically by... Let me see here... Well, his voice is Nanzu Anozi. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And I saw somewhere on who portrayed him physically, because it's like an actual suit that looks really, really cool. Like it's all covered in like moss and stuff like that. And he is portrayed physically by Carrie Jones, who, if you remember, was Chrysanthemum in Book of Boba Fett. So Mando is able to get the attention of Gorian Shard, and he basically gets the what I'm going to call the flank ships, because I can't remember what the actual names for it are. Of course, the flank ships are led by the same guy that gave them trouble in Episode 1, Vane. And of course, those ships dropping like flies. And then Bo ends up striking the ship. And Shard tells Vane to bring his troops back, because they have more pressing matters on them. And then Bo and Mando are just able to double team the ship. Vane basically pieces out and says, Shard, it's been good working with you, but, I think it's time for us to part our separate ways. And Shard ends up going down with the ship. It lands on the in the town, on the outskirts of town, I should say. But the people of Navarro are very much thankful, and Grief says, hey, I know we've had our differences, but I want to thank you all for what you have done, and you are welcome to the land past the Western Flats to call your home. Even though you don't have a home planet anymore, you have a home here. And, everything seems, great, happy and healthy between everyone. But Paz says to Bo that the armor wants to see her. And they end up having a conversation, and the armor says, remove your helmet. And Bo is confused by this. But the armor persists that Bo should remove her helmet. And the armor says that Bo has walked both ways of the way, with helmet on and helmet off. She knows how to bring together people, more specifically bring together Mandalorians. So the armor has kind of tasked Bo with leading the Mandalorians back to Mandalore. And that is where this episode leaves off. So yeah, that is my review of Season 3, Episode 5 of The Mandalorian. Like I said, this episode was a lot of fun. And it was really, really well shot action, especially with the final aerial stuff. So well done with Peter Ramsey behind the camera with that. And just, sets up some really cool stuff that we get to see later on in the season. But yeah, pretty much it for that one, which leaves us with 3. And oh boy, next one's gonna be a doozy. But until then, guys, be safe out there, and always make sure to have a travel companion with you, because you never know, they may point you into a new way of looking at things. I will catch you guys next time.